Tropical Fuckstorm are an experimental art punk band from Melbourne. Known for their manic fusion of blues, punk, noise, and garage psych, the band have released 4 studio albums to extraordinary critical acclaim. Their latest, Fairyland Codex, is them at their most prophetic, and it may well be their very best album. Laden with heady instrumentation and vocal performances to match, I sat down with Gareth Liddiard to chat about making music that speaks to the times and more. Yes. G'day.
Hi.
Very nice to meet you. For those unfamiliar with your work, could you introduce yourself?
I'm Gareth Liddiard, pronounced Liddiard, but my dad, it's his name. He says Liddiard.
Interesting.
So I don't know why we say Liddiard.
Is that your own affectation? Introducing the art?
It must be, yeah, but he's English, sort of Brazilian English, and me and my sister are Australian, so it must be an Australian thing.
Sure.
Yeah. But yeah, and I'm a musician.
Yeah.
Play music.
Congrats on Fairyland Codex.
Thanks, man. Yeah.
I wanted to ask, what is a Fairyland Codex?
What is it? It's like, the Codex, is kind of, it's almost like an instruction manual, a magical instruction manual. And Fairyland is just where everyone is at the moment. Because of the internet has driven everyone a bit mental, so they're all semi-delusional. Living in Fairyland. So, that's what it is.
Well, I wanted to ask you about that. Like, you as a band have never shied away from making music that's a reflection of the times. What were some of the messages that you were hoping to deliver on Fairyland Codex?
Well, they're not kind of direct in that kind of classic protest song sense. They're a bit obtuse, which is what we want. It's almost like a reflection. You might look at a song and think, oh, this song is about a certain kind of person, but then you won't realize it's also about you, because we all do this stuff, like, delusions. And, on that sort of left-right spectrum, one side always thinks the other side's completely lost it, but both sides have lost it, So it's that. It's a kind of that's the general gist. And then, I don't know, there's so much in it. There's a lot in that record lyrically. Yeah.
But sort of about the cracks in our collective armor?
Yeah. And it's still kind of written in a way that, you can read into it what you want. It's like one of those raw stash paintings, those weird kind of sort of ink blotchy drawings they use in a psychological evaluation where they say, what do you see? And you go, I see a crab. And someone else says, I see a unicorn in the clouds, or, I see the devil, or, so it's like that. Those songs are kind of like that, because that's what we like. I don't like songs that are kind of too prescriptive, that sort of tell you, this is what you got to think about. It's like boring. Don't tell me what to think.
So what do you see in your album then?
What do I see? Well, for me, like, a lot of people think it's really depressing and weird. For me personally, it seems like a pop album.
Interesting.
Yeah. It's, it's got melody, and I don't know. I mean, we just make the music we want to hear, and that, is generally music that isn't out there, like we want to hear something new, because you get sick of hearing the same old shit.
Yeah.
So we always try. That's the only kind of thing we're doing, is try to do something we haven't heard and that we like, So it can be weird and, I don't know, discordant or abrasive and weird time signatures, but there's melody and stuff as well, because I don't believe in that sort of, I like, art music where it's completely bonkers and unlistenable. I like it, it's ideas music, but I also like, music that's a pleasure to listen to. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And it's harder to make that than it is to do like I don't know, what's a fucking Stockhausen kind of just horrible noise. Yeah. But I like Stockhausen, so no shade on him.
No, sure.
Yeah.
Well, you've just mentioned an interesting point. Like, I would say that as a broad statement, your discography with Fuckstorm so far has leaned toward the sort of more anxious aggression sonically.
Yeah.
Whereas this one has acquired a bit more melody and sort of a wistfulness and a sentimentality to it.
Yeah.
What sort of prompted that change in direction?
I think that those bits are more the acoustic songs. We did 2 acoustic songs, but we'd done a movie in the pandemic, and we'd done a bunch of acoustic versions of our older songs, and we just liked doing it, you know.
Mm-hmm.
And so we thought, well, let's write some newies that are acoustic.
Mm.
And and then so those are the ones that people seem to think are the most moving or whatever. Yeah. Well, I think that's what I've heard.
No, for sure. Yeah. There's a softness to it, which is not something that I would commonly associate with storm music.
Yeah. Well, we can do. I mean, we will listen to, all sorts of stuff. So,
what do you like listening to?
Anything. Like, I spent the day trying to learn a bit of classical guitar today.
Oh, cool.
I like that. I like bluegrass. I like flamenco, classical. I like punk rock.
Cool.
I like
a lot of guitar music.
Yeah, I do, because it's my thing, I listen to a lot of jazz and stuff.
Yeah.
Whatever. If it's good, it's good.
Yeah, totally.
Like there's good music and bad music, and that's the 2 genres.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's good. I've never had anyone put it like that. I'll get back to that later on. But I've been lucky enough to see you guys play quite a few times. Tell me about bringing this particular album to a live setting.
There's some songs we can't do, but that's always the way. But we did this more. We sort of tried deliberately to make a record that we could all sit in a room and play. I mean, we always can play most of the stuff, but the way we write it, it'll be more like a science experiment. The studio's like a laboratory, and then, our other records, sort of half of them we played together, and the other half of the songs we've just sort of put them together onto tape and just, experimented and kind of just see what happens.
Mm.
And then later we had to learn how to play them, which can be really hard. And you can have, a sick song, but it's just fucking impossible to play. So we didn't want to have too many of them this time, so we just did it all sitting in a circle. And
so historically, you kind of started at the end in terms of an assembly of the individual parts.
Yeah.
Interesting.
Yeah, because, it gets away from habits. And we've all been playing music for ages, and so we've all got our individual, go-to habits that you kind of muscle memory, it's hard to get away from.
Yeah.
So if you don't write on your chosen instrument together in a room as a sort of normal rock band combination, you'll come up with something that you wouldn't have come up with otherwise. So, yeah.
So, well, just on that, you're a band who, as you said, you're all musicians independently of one another, and you've all had very successful solo avenues, which has resulted in some really rich material. Tell me about balancing the creative energies in a band where everybody's got their own ideas and come from their own musical backgrounds.
It's kind of, for an outsider, it's this thing where they hear the end product, so they kind of think that you know what you're doing, but you don't. When you're doing it, you kind of, like with lyrics, you start with a blank page, and it's like, oh shit. And the rule of the game is to fill that page, otherwise there's nothing there. And so it's like, it's more like a desperate struggle to make anything really, and then the end product is the end product, and you sort of go, is that good? I guess. It's hard to, it's just this weird struggle to make, music where there is silence, rather than having this game plan and knowing what you're doing to the point where you sketch it all out and then do it. Yeah. Like if you listen to any old record, like a classic record, I don't know, if you listen to television or, I don't know, even like Jimi Hendrix or something, people don't realize those recordings are generally those people doing that kind of thing for the first time. Yeah. And you go, well, they're experts, they know what they're doing. It's like, no, this is literally the first time they've pulled it off.
And with someone like television, it's the first time in history it's ever been done.
Yeah, totally. Yeah. So it's like
they're not drawing from anything that sounds like that.
And they're just as surprised as anyone.
Yeah.
Like they're like, wow, what the fuck? What did we do? So yeah, everyone sees experts, but they're not. They're just struggling to come up with something.
Is that the glue that binds the artists of the world, do you think?
Yeah, I think they're all the same. Yeah, everyone sees Picasso and thinks, well, painting X, he must have done a million of them, and so he knew what he was doing when he started this one. It's like, no, this is the first time he's managed to get there. And so like at the end, he's going, I don't know, is that right? Like everyone else.
Yeah. What do you think the explanation for that is? How do these ideas come to people? How do they come to yourself?
I was reading a Carl Jung thing, and he really nailed it. He said, there's arts and crafts, and they're different. I saw a comedian the other day talking, saying, if someone says they're into arts and crafts, everybody knows they're into crafts, but like, say, proper art where it's moving, whether it's a film or, it could be rock and roll or, classical, whatever. The real artist accesses the subconscious and the collective subconscious. He or she doesn't really know what they're doing, but they know what it is when they do it. They go, there it is.
Mm.
And then you put it out there, and then, like a plumber can listen to your song or watch your movie, and a plumber doesn't have time to sit around and access their subconscious and that sort of, Homo sapien collective subconscious. And that's the service that an artist provides, Yeah.
In your mind, what's the distinction between arts and crafts?
Crafts is making baskets, and art is making goosebumps.
That's fucking awesome.
That was
Have you said that before?
Did you hear that, Rico? That was good.
That's sick.
Yeah.
I'm writing that down.
There are some pretty nice baskets. I got to say, in my old age, I'm starting to appreciate a good basket. I love that. Yeah, yeah, we've done.
Just sort of over the arm, or
the other day. Yeah, full of all sorts of goodies. Yeah, we were in
assorted breads,
assorted breads and cheeses. We were in a medieval French market. I don't know, 3 months ago, weren't we?
Where was that?
Oh, it had the dumbest name. I mean, French is hard enough, but this one was just like it's like Dnipro, but that's like somewhere. Dinard was the beach. Yeah, this one had why did you bother calling that place that name? It's fucking stupid.
In Australia or in France?
No, it was in South France.
South France.
Yeah, you were on tour, and but yeah, it was beautiful. It's hot, hot and sticky, but it's great. You can have a beer, you can try some cheese, and you can buy cool hunting knives, or you can buy, olives and tapenade. Whatever. Snails.
How's the tour been so far?
Good. It's endless.
Yeah.
We all feel like we've been in a washing machine.
How's being an artist changed over the course of your career?
In what way?
Well, earlier I mentioned you're an artist who is tapped into writing about sort of the times we're living in. People are talking a lot about how it's impossible to be an artist in 2025 from a
close,
a royalties capitalism perspective.
Yeah.
Tell me a bit about that.
Yeah, it's bad. I mean, I don't like to whinge. It's insanely hard. Everyone thinks, well, they only see the fun bit. They see the show, or they hear the record, or they don't see the work, and then it's just harder and harder. Yeah, with shit like Spotify, and everything is fucking, it was bad enough with proper real, corporate record labels back in the day when they existed. I mean, they'd shaft you. But now they just look like heaven. It's like, back then they seemed like hell, but now bring it back. I would love to sign to Warner's and just get shafted, because it would be a better deal than what you get now.
Describe the getting shafted.
Yeah.
What does that involve?
Just they rip you off. I mean, but at least old corporate record labels, not that we ever got on one, but they would pay you. They would still rip you off in that sense, but you would get paid more than, streaming or
royalties,
any of that shit. So it's just really hard, and it's almost impossible. And then the shit, you get taxed. We have to get visas for America, and Trump's raised them like 150%, you know. But yeah, so like,
Staggering.
yeah, like now is so much worse than saying like what Kurt Cobain was complaining about in the 1990s, like, you know, and it was bad then. It's like, you know, now where you look at Donald Trump and then you look at George W. Bush, who, you know, you plenty to criticize, but George W. Bush looks like a cool dude now because you've had experience with Trump. Like, you know what I mean?
Yeah,
Like,
it's slippery slope, eh?
yeah, well, that's with the record industry is like that. It was shit before, but now that just looks like paradise compared to what it is now. Yeah.
In terms of the good stuff that the record industry's given us, I wanted to ask you, I ask this of everybody I interview, if you could play me any album, what would you play me?
Oh God, I don't know.
Or any three. A lot of people struggle with one.
I would say that the Velvet Underground and Nico record, that's a pretty perfect record.
What do you like about it?
It's just great. It's solid. Every song's amazing and weird and it's kooky and it's, you know, it's that lovely balance between it's all fucked up, but it really hangs together well. And, you know, there's Nico's singing is amazing and then you kind of contrasted that with Lou Reed's and it's just beautiful. It's amazing. And then it's got, you know, what's that song? Fucking Venus in Furs as this kind of centerpiece. Like,
Yeah.
holy shit. Like we listened to it the other day in the van and just loving the album. It's cruising along. And then that song comes on. It's just like, whoa, I wish I wrote
It's got that
that.
almost like sitar-y.
Yeah, it's got the
twang.
Indian vibe
Yeah.
and yeah, the violin that just sort of strips the paint off the walls. It just goes all the way through it. And it's amazing. So
Yeah.
that's one. I mean, mine are all this. I'll stick to the rock and roll. There's that. Then, you know, Raw Power by the Stooges. Everyone prefers Funhouse, but I think just Raw Power. Just, even today, it's like, wow. Like the singing, he's amazing. It's like, wow, that's like one of the best vocal records, let alone, you know, band records, but just the vocals, it's like, fuck, every song, he's amazing. So that, and then, I don't know. It's just, I don't know, Are You Experienced by Jimi Hendrix? Just because, like, what?
Yeah.
What the fuck? And as a debut album, that's like, wow.
Totally.
And whenever we go to America, we play at the Fillmore and places like that, and we meet the old roadies who are still alive. They're all like, you know, late 70s, 80s. And I just always say,
How was Jimmy?
yeah. And they're just like, whoa, fuck, I'm glad you asked. And then they just go, like,
they'd be dining out forever on that stuff.
yeah. And no one saw it coming. I mean, that's the thing. Like you know, they were working one day and there was this guy who was coming, he was an American, but he'd been living in England and they were like, all right, yeah, cool, we'll see how this goes. And then just like, what the fuck is going on?
Some of the material from those shows is just nuts.
Yeah.
Like Machine Gun. Is
Yeah,
just like
Machine Gun.
crazy.
Yeah, it's like, and Machine Gun's so weird. It's like, it's the same old scales and same old stuff that Hendrix did on other songs. So why is it so terrifying and horrific? He's just doing what he always does.
Yeah.
He's just sort of pivoted. And
There's an edge to it.
Yeah, it's horrific. It's so heavy. Yeah. It's just, I mean, that's an artist. You know what I mean? Like, yeah.
That's us, guys. Cheers.
Yeah. No worries, man.
Appreciate it.
Cheers, man.